So in Blake's talk, at one point he said something about being in control of the situation. So that's a very interesting notion, because we're actually never in control of any situation. And when we try to be in control of the situation, that means the situation is controlling us. So that means our mind is sucked into our definition. We're sucked into a storyline. And then we're trying to write that story. And we can't do that. This world is vast, and this world is wide, and we are not separate from it. So, as Blake said, when we sit and these thoughts come up, not good, not bad, just these thoughts come up. Some of them are pleasant, most of them are not. There's a lot of worry and anxiety. There's a lot of sadness, a lot of grief that come up. But that doesn't have to control us. We can just let it be. So in the Heart Sutra, we have the eyes and the ears and the nose and the tongue and the body, which means the skin, perception of what our skin feels. And these are perceiving, right? Eye, light, sound, and so on. And then the mind is also a perceptual organ. And what the mind perceives are thoughts. So that's very liberating. That means we are not our thoughts. We perceive them. There's a very famous kind of spiritual exercise when you're sitting. Can you perceive the moment that a thought begins? And as far as I know, nobody's ever done that. There they are, When we're sitting, we can perceive that process. We can perceive that we can't perceive the beginning of our thought. We can perceive that we are not identical to that thought. We can let it drift like a cloud. So, are there any questions? Well, if there are no questions, I want to continue what I was saying. So, in our style of Zen practice, so contemporary Zen worldwide basically splits into two schools. It's Saodong, known as Soto in Japan and America, and the Linchi schools, of which we are one. Rinzai in Japan is probably the most well-known, but we're also a Linchi school. And in Linchi schools, the meditation always consists of some mindless mental action. And when I say mindless, I mean it's not about the frontal lobes. It's not about logic, it's not about thinking. We're not trying to understand something in that way. So the most common practice given to beginners, and it's a wonderful practice, you can do it your whole life, is simply counting your breaths. So on the first out breath, 1, silently of course. On the second out breath, 2. On the third out breath, 3. You go up to 10, and then you start again at 1. And the reason you go 1 through 10, 1 through 10, is so you don't say, well, yesterday I got up to 1,558 breaths. It's just 1 through 10, 1 through 10, 1 through 10. So you have this focus for your mind. We have many other practices, but they all have some kind of focus, some focus that is not attached to thinking. It's not attached to ideas. It's not attached to concepts. And we have this practice, and we bring our mind back, and we bring our mind back, and we just focus on this practice. And when our mind drifts, we bring our mind back. And this bringing our mind back is what enables us to let our thoughts go. Because if we're following our thinking, if we're planning, if we're scheming, if we're regretting, if we're doing any of those things that we usually do, if we're doing those, then we're not focused on our practice. So we bring our mind back, we bring our mind back. And that's Zen meditation. And the direction of Zen meditation is not for me. That means my life is not about being smarter, skinnier, richer, nicer for all beings. I am not separate. My life is for all beings. And this manifests in various ways. Very few of us are Mother Teresa. Most of us are very ordinary people. But when you live your life so that the big question in your life is not, how does this make me feel? But when the big question in your life is, how is everybody? Then your life changes. So, did you have a question? Microphone?
I'm not sure it's working.
If the blue light's on, it's working.
So you were talking about, when we're sitting, we do something with our mind that's mindless, that we're not like. And I've heard, I don't know that you said this, but I know I've heard Stan talk about this and other teachers about how one works on their koans. And, when your mind starts to wander when you're sitting, you bring up your koan and this is where I don't know quite the right verb, because how do you
perceive
do
it?
Okay, so you perceive.
Yeah,
your koan.
and I don't remember. Oh, my mind is wandering. I think I'll bring up my koan. No, because that's another sort of like that's another goal. When your mind wanders, bring it to your practice. When your koan naturally arises, then perceive it.
How do you perceive it without thinking about it and trying to solve it?
What do you see?
One.
There you go. Actually, you don't see one. Try again. That's with that. How many?
One.
One finger, right? Okay, that's perception. If you say one, then you have a concept. One by itself is a concept, okay? So you perceive it. So this, I love this example. This ring that I have, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's my engagement ring, and it's really cool because it's this blue sapphire with little diamonds. And Stan got it for me because I didn't want to marry him, so I told him I didn't like diamonds. So he got me a sapphire. But this was very useful when, I was a professor and I'd sit in department meetings, and anyone who's been in any kind of teaching situation knows that department meetings are the worst. And so things would get very boring, and I just kind of, sort of move it around, and no one would notice. And of course, what it's doing is it's catching the light, and you just watch how it catches the light as you move it. That's how you perceive a koan. You just perceive it. The classical analogy, because they didn't have engagement rings in ancient Tang dynasty, is a pearl, that you're rolling a pearl in your hand. It's the same thing. You have this jewel, and it's catching light, and also in the case of the pearl, you're rolling in your hand, so it's a feeling, and you're just perceiving it. So you just perceive it. Okay? Yeah. Are there any other questions?
My career that I dedicated my life to was automated by AI, and I am feeling angry. What should I do with this anger? Is there a way, how should I let it go? Should I use it to help this world? What do I do with my anger?
I have no idea. Okay? It's your anger. You decide. You don't even decide. It will work itself out. You will figure out what to do. Okay? But don't be controlled by your anger. What field were you in?
Computer science.
Oh, and they're automating programming. Yeah. Right.
Software engineering.
Software engineering. Yeah. The thing of the future. Right. Well, you're not going to be alone. Yeah, that's going to happen to a lot of people. So don't let your anger control you. That's really important. If your anger controls you, then anything you do is counterproductive. You can't help yourself, you can't help other people. You have to step back from your anger. You have to perceive this. I mean, the same with anything. You perceive the situation, you perceive your relationship to the situation, and then you perceive your function and you do your function. Become a plumber. That'll take a while for AI to take over plumbing. I'm sure it will at some point, but it's a good job. Everybody needs plumbers. Yeah, so so you're caught up. There's so many people on this planet that are caught up in these global forces that none of us control. All those people affected by floods, all the people affected by famine, all the people affected by economic things as you are. There are all these things, and we can't control them as individuals. And even as societies, we can't really control them because we keep fighting with each other over them and what to do. So you have to absorb your anger, transmute your anger, and don't let your anger control you. That's what's very important. Okay? And good luck. We all need good luck these days. Margaret, you had your hand up.
Well, I don't really have a question, but I have something to say about what Blake was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know, I've been a counselor for over 25 years. So that kind of anxiety that wakes you up in the middle of the night, and Zen practice is wonderful for that, but there's a companion practice that's quite simple and involves a simple mantra, which is no action needed. Or you can say no action needed this moment, because your function at 3 o'clock in the morning is usually to be sleeping and getting rest. But we can start ruminating about the past or ruminating about the future. And this is very, very difficult because anxiety, it opens up a very primitive structure in our brain that just starts doing that to us. And then we get no sleep, and then we're no good the next day. And we still can't get to all those emails. So it's called the Cortina method. You can look it up. It's a therapeutic method, but I have found it extremely helpful because I have a habit of ruminating about the past or ruminating about the future. And when I catch myself, start doing my Zen practice of focusing on the breath and repeating out loud, whispering the mantra, no action needed at this moment.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah, no action needed is exactly what meditation is, because we can't get up and do whatever our thoughts tell us. We're stuck here on the cushion. So thank you very much. Yeah. Also, anxiety can be physiological without being mental. And then, oh, it's just my body's doing this. I don't have to worry about it, like that. So yeah, thank you very much, Margaret. I like that, no action needed. Maybe that could be put on my grave when I die. Anything else? Yes.
So a lot of times we hear, like you're saying, don't let your anger control you,
Yeah.
or put it all down.
I don't like put it all down, but okay.
But that,
Yeah,
but
a
what
lot
I'm
of people say
saying
that,
is
yeah.
that we hear these
Yeah,
different
yeah.
things, and to me, sometimes it sounds like get over it.
No.
And so what I know that's not it, but it's sort of like when somebody's grieving and you tell them what they should be doing.
No.
And don't let your grief control you. I mean, what's the difference between not letting your anger control you and not letting your grief control you? Or how do you talk to somebody without saying, this is what you need to do?
Because when someone is grieving and you tell them, you personally, don't let your grief control you, is different from saying, our thinking is only our thinking. We do not have to be controlled by our thinking. So it's that liberation means you do not have to be controlled. And you're right, like saying don't be controlled, maybe it's better to you don't have to be controlled. So, anger is just anger. And people can use anger. You digest your anger, you can use it. But yeah, anytime we're controlled by anything, being controlled by joy and happiness, just as problematic, because then it blinds us to the suffering of this world. So we need to liberate ourselves. Everyone needs to liberate ourselves from being controlled by our thinking, controlled by our feeling, controlled by our categories, controlled by our intellect, controlled by our emotions. That's sort of a general thing. We can be free of that. But yeah, you can't tell, especially, my God, if somebody's grieving, that has to work itself.
Feeling. I mean, how do you, there's grief, there's anger, there's
Yeah.
depression, there's anxiety.
So
How do you tell somebody, don't do that?
You don't.
Don't let yourself be controlled by that.
You don't.
But you just did.
It was a different context.
Okay.
Okay? It's a different
So
context.
how do you?
The message here is I'm telling everybody you can be liberated. Okay? But no, if someone's grieving, grief is all these things, they have to work themselves out. You don't close them down. All right? Yeah. So thank you. Anything else? Okay. So stop the recording, please.